Yes, Stuart Farr, Hudson Valley Hops and Grains here in the town of Ankrum, southern Columbia County, New York. Yeah, we farm here 350 acres of mostly rented ground, some owned here on the farm itself. The soil itself is very light soil. It's technically a silty, sandy loam, but in practice it's a lot of sand and quite a few rocks. And so inherently it's low fertility, as we would understand it, in terms of available nutrients. It's low CEC, it's low organic matter. So you have to work for the yield because of that. A few reasons. Sort of holistically, because of what I just said about the soil, we have to build up the organic matter. We have to increase the nutrient holding capability and the performance of the soil, and that's not going to be done with tillage. Secondly is the amount of time or less time in diesel and spent on doing tillage. And then thirdly, more crop specific, is we're picking up less stones or hardly any stones in the system we have for growing black beans. In a no-till system is much better for reducing the stone burden. So there's a couple of slots in it. Overall the rotation is 6 years. We start off with rye, then a crop of red clover for hay and for seed, and then going into sunflowers, and that is the first opportunity for no-till, or technically strip-till. So we're actually strip-tilling the sunflowers into a red clover, actively growing red clover stand. And then after the sunflowers we go into wheat, hard red winter wheat, and then after wheat we go into buckwheat, and then after buckwheat we go into beans, and that's the second slot for the organic no-till, where we're establishing those beans into a growing crop of rye, which is established the previous fall. So 2 out of the 3 slots in the rotation, organic no-till. 1 slot is no-till at all because it's second year red clover. So the rye for the beans is established in exactly the same way as the rye for grain, and that's typically getting in as early as is practical, which is mid-September or so. 150 pounds an acre of seed, and a little bit of fertility, essentially stimulant-based fertility, in other words, fish and molasses and trace elements down the row, experimenting with putting a little bit of phosphorus down the row, because we are very deficient of that here. But it's the same. It's the same system for both the cover crop rye and also the cereal grain. So we no-till we use the planters directly into the standing rye, so planting green, as I think it's called. And the reason for that is purely practical. The planter itself is a very old planter. It's an old 4.0 case, 35 years old or so. It's not designed to punch through a thatch of rye mulch. So planting green was the way to get around that without changing equipment. And so we just drive straight through the rye with the planter, and don't have GPS, and use essentially a guidance system, a physical guidance system on the front of the tractor to mark the rows. And that works. It's very simple. It's very low stress on the tractor. It's 1,300 revs on the tractor. It's quick. It's easy. And then coming back in almost immediately, a day later maybe, and roller crimping, which again is a very simple, low stress, low amount of diesel task to push the rye down. And then sometimes, this year being one of those cases, we have to go back 11 or so days later at V1 and roller crimp again for rye that has popped up from the first roller crimping. So that's a system that starts in the previous fall. So we create the strips in the fall, in September, and with a strip till machine that is in various stages of adaptation, and at the same time planting turnips and radish down into the strips, still experimenting with the right mix, but at the moment it's turnip and radish. And then that obviously winter kills over winter, and then coming back the following spring and strip tilling again, with a tine-based implement and also a disc-based implement, the same machine but different. The attachments are different. and then after strip tilling, coming in and then planting the actual sunflowers themselves. So the planting of the beans green and the roller crimping is at a physical level has worked well and looks like it's a very viable system. The challenge is a weed control, and that's year dependent, of course, and field dependent. But with a combination of an inter-row mower and an inter-row crimper, there's two methods there that, in different circumstances, seem to be effective. Challenge-wise is on the sunflowers is we don't know if it's fertility, but essentially competition between the sunflowers and the red clover, whether it's physical competition for light and water, or whether it's nutritional, or whether it's some other factor, is definitely more of a challenge. We're making progress, but that system is further behind the beans in the roll-till, the no-till beans. Yeah, I think it's very tempting to look at things on a very annual basis and compare yields of one system with another, and that has some value, but I think in this case it's the wrong metric. So again, the reason we're doing it here is the overall quality of the soil and the health of the soil is not providing the fertility it should and indeed can. So we're looking at it here as a much more overall holistic method of building up a much more productive soil. So almost by definition, you can't, you can do what you like, but I don't compare a simple yield comparison. I think in the case of beans, we're going to get parity. I can't demonstrate that yet, but I think we will. Sunflowers, more of a work in progress. But overall, at a sort of visual level and a sort of gut level, it looks good, it looks right. You see these plants growing in combination, or in the case of the mulch, it's not growing, but it's there. And you look at it and you think, there's something right about the system. It's a sort of feel, which doesn't put dollars in the bank, but I think it will. Yes, I'm not going to put numbers because I haven't done the numbers, but from a diesel and time perspective, it's obviously a lot less in no-till for obvious reasons. In the case of fertility, it's either in the case of the sunflowers, it's less by definition. There's no nitrogen going on. We've got a field of nitrogen producing clover out there, so it's less on the nutrient side without question as well. I'm not sure how much yet. But the yield, therefore, is the biggest determination of whether it's more profitable or not. Again, I think on the beans will be there yield-wise and therefore more profitable. On the sunflowers, they will definitely be less yield, and I think the yield loss will not make up for the savings in the diesel, steel, and nutrients.